How can you create when you're afraid? This is legit because when it comes to creating, fear of failing is a real thing. By the end of this episode, you'll learn what you need in order to overcome fear when it comes to creating and really all of life.
Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create.
I've touched on this before, but you might have missed it. I'm afraid of flying, like really afraid. Most people miss this about me because I'm always talking about traveling here and there and, all these places. And I'm clearly not going to these far-flung places by bus. So people often don't get that I'm afraid of flying. And it wasn't always like this. When I was younger and growing up, living throughout West Africa, I loved flying. Flying was a necessary part of our lives because our family is originally from Sierra Leone, and for most of my growing up years, we lived in Nigeria. And my parents are big-time family people, so every summer, Easter, and Christmas, we would get on a plane and fly from Nigeria back to Sierra Leone to spend time with the grandmas, cousins, aunties, uncles, and all the people. And we'd often make a stop in Ghana or some other country on the way as we hopped along, the West African coast to head home. And for me at that time, flying was always so much fun, not just because of where we were going and who we were going to hang out with and who we were going to see, but for me, the sheer thrill of taking off into the sky and, having those fun flights and being catered to, which was, back in the day when airlines, were treating their passengers like they were people and not cattle. My mom, she was like a woman of her era. So we were always like dressed to the nines, to travel. And, traveling was this grand, fun, and enjoyable affair. And it was also an even bigger part of my life once I left home for boarding school in the northern part of Nigeria while my parents still continued to live in the south. So one day at the end of a summer vacation in my preteen years, my parents take me to the airport in Lagos because I'm about to take the hour-long flight to where my boarding school is in Jos. Now, my parents aren't flying with me on this trip, but I'm accompanied by a whole bunch of other fellow schoolmates who also live in Lagos and the other southern cities. So we're all heading back to school. And it's the post-summer cool freshness vibe, that we've got. We've all, shown up for the flight in our new clothes, our new sneakers, new backpacks. We're ready to start this new school year, get it on and stuff. So they announce our flight. So we get ready, we board. We kind of have to elbow our way through the blob of people that's supposedly an impression of a line. Because the thing about Cabo Air and pretty much any flight in most West African countries at the time was that even though you have a boarding pass, it does not necessarily guarantee that you're actually going to get a seat on the flight. So you got to hustle, get up there, get in line, get in the seat, and then that's when you're guaranteed, that you're going to be on this flight. So, our parents, would usually, of course, be watching and waiting for us to actually get on the flight and for the flight to actually take off before they left the airport to make sure that no kids were left behind. So we get on and settle in to this flight, and in typical Cabo Air fashion, the flight takes off and veers sharply to the right, like the pilot is driving like a race car, and then we turn and head north, right? That was just, I don't know why they flew like that, but that's how they flew. So we're flying along, and it's like minute, I remember it's like an hour flight. It's not that long. So getting to that halfway point, it's like minute 28, minute 29, I'm just, sitting and, I'm sitting next to a woman I don't really know. So, just, sort of staring and waiting for the flight to move along. And suddenly the plane drops. Now, I don't mean the plane dips a little bit and, we bounce back up. I mean, the plane is free falling out of the sky, thousands and thousands of feet through the air. My ears are burning because we are losing so much altitude so fast and the pressure is building up in my head. Now, they often say that in the moments before you think you're about to die, your whole life flashes before your eyes. Lies, absolute lies. I saw absolutely nothing, but I heard a whole lot. People were screaming and swearing on that tin can of death as we were going down. People were yelling, Jesus, Allah, atheists were like getting religion. It was absolute pandemonium, absolute mayhem. I turned to the woman who's next to me. We grab each other. We're holding on to each other. We're screaming. We're crying. There's so much noise on this plane. And then it stops. We level out and we just, keep flying along. And my ears are still on fire. And people are like they're shocked, they're stunned. People are still crying. People are trying to compose themselves. Like I've got like snot dripping out of my face. Like we are just hoping, okay, are we okay? Like maybe we're not going to die after all. We're just all stunned by what happened. And then he comes on the intercom. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We had to reduce our altitude, so if your ear is bothering you, please just swallow your saliva. And that was it. That is literally all that captain said about that terrible bit of flying that he did after nearly dropping us all to our deaths. Till today, I still have no idea what happened. So we have about 30 more minutes of this flight. So we fly on in silence to Jos and we land. And once we land, all the passengers, we like book it out of the plane. We're like rats fleeing the Titanic. We're like, get us out of here. Get us away from this crazy plane and this crazy captain. We are so relieved to be alive. So when I tell you that I have a fear of flying, hopefully you understand and give me a little bit of grace to know why. That was a harrowing experience. And after that flight, that airline became defunct, by the way. Not right after that flight, but eventually disbanded. Go figure. I still can't seem to dislodge this deep fear of flying that kind of settled into my body after that experience. But yet I still fly a lot. And you may wonder, okay, now that I've shared that experience with you, well, how does she do it? How does she just get on a flight after flight after flight? Because, if you know me, I do pound the airwaves. And I think I'm a little like Rosita from Sing Off 2. I say Sing Off 2 because I have not even seen Sing Off 1. And Sing Off 2 is another movie that I caught on my most recent international travels. The same trip where I watched the ghastly Marry Me movie. Yeah. Anyway, so why I compare myself with Rosita is because at one point in that movie, she gets this lead part in the performance of their troupe. And part of what she's supposed to do is to leap off of a high tower, like, of course, attached to like some string or whatever, and fly around, zip around and do her, musical number. And at some point, early on in the practices, she develops this fear of flying. And because of it, she gets replaced by another actress. But towards the end of the show, or really towards the end of the movie, her friend and boss, Buster Moon, gets tossed off a balcony by the villain. And as he's falling to his death, she like snaps into action and she quickly gets over her fear and she jumps and she dives to save him. And she saves him. She saves the day. And you're watching this and you're thinking, you can think like, well, what made Rosita do it? Because like her fear was like real. It was palpable. She was like petrified to be on this high thing. What is it that helped her get over her fear of heights to save her friend? What is it that helps any of us really overcome our fears? What is it? Because we all have things that we're afraid of. You have things that you're afraid of. The people you care about in your life have things they're afraid of. Even people you don't like. They have things that they're afraid of. And we know people who are our heroes in life, in society, who've done amazing things in scary situations, which we know they were afraid of. Maybe they didn't say it, but definitely many people do share about having fears that they overcome. So what is this? And what is it possibly for you? Think about it. Think about a moment when you've overcome your fear and really slow down and take a microscopic look and lift up the covers and look back on it. What was going on underneath? What was going on underneath that helped you move towards and through your fear? Let me give you a clue. Think about a time you wanted something really, really bad. Like you wanted it so bad, you kind of started feeling a little scared, just a bit, a little scared that you wouldn't get it. It can be overwhelming to want, to dream, to want anything, really. That sense of fear that I won't get it, it won't work out, or maybe I'll fail, or maybe they won't love me back, or I'll never succeed at this. It can be palpable. But if you think about it, time and time again, we dare to press on. We can find a deeper thing at work that still pulls us forward and through. And that deeper thing is love. Yes, love. You know it. When we're drawn through because we love something more than we fear another, we find ourselves being brave in ways we never thought possible. It's what helped Rosita get over her fear of heights to save her friend, Mr. Moon. It was her love for him, not wanting to see him get hurt or for him to die. And it's what has drawn so many people who we name as heroes and inspirations in our life. People like Harriet Tubman, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr. You know, despite the fear or the scary situations that they were in, or the fear that they must have felt at different times, they share, and we know this about them, they were drawn by their love for something greater. They did it for the love, and that is what made all the difference. So I want you to ask yourself and think for yourself, what do you love? I know whenever I get on a plane, despite my fear, despite that, after that horrendous experience, I'm not thinking about that Cabo Air flight. Really, not really. I'm thinking about the people and the places that I love and that I want to be with, and the experiences that I want to have on the other side of the trip. It's what gets me on a plane and walking through my fear time and time again. So I ask you, what do you love? Can you learn to love it more and more than all the fear that's getting in the way of you embracing it? Why am I talking so much about love? What's love got to do with it? What's love got to do with creating, which is what Reframe to Create is all about? Love's got everything to do with it, because love is what's going to help you get over the humps and hurdles that are making it hard for you to create. If this is your first time here at Reframe to Create, welcome. I don't know why you think you came, but now that you're here, I'm going to let you know why you're here. You're here because there's something or experience that is your unique contribution to the world, and which you need to be about the business of creating. And I know that's why you're here, because it's my mission to help every person who listens to this podcast to tap into and live out of that creating space. I don't care what your job or your career is. I'm not here to help you get better, brighter, faster at being a productivity hamster who is climbing ladders that other people say is what it is and what it takes to be living a successful life. That's irrelevant to me. This is bigger than the way that you're paying your bills. You can handle that and figure that out on your own. I trust you. You already got it, I'm sure. This is about a bigger responsibility which you consistently ignore and suppress because our society doesn't always value it. I care about getting you to use rather than stuff and waste your gifts. I'm here to remind you that if your job and your career don't allow room for your gifts, and you don't use them in some way, anyway, somewhere, because of that, you're not off the hook, and it's your responsibility and your fault if they fade. Your job needs to stop being the central organizing feature of your life and your identity. It's a temporary vehicle. It's not your real work. So what do you love, and what will you create that shows that love in the world as your unique contribution? Hey, if this question makes you scared, it's okay. I get it. And sometimes that fear doesn't go away from wishing and willing. I've tried it with my fear of flying. Now I just have to let it go. I have to stop obsessing over it and focus on what it is that I love and what I want on the other side of the trip. Like, I love me a gorgeous beach resort, good food, especially seafood, and great conversation with friends. So guess who just booked a ticket to enjoy just that in Mexico? Yes. No fear of flying is going to stop me. And even though I always regret my choice to get on a plane, once I'm there and I hear doors are on for takeoff, we're all sealed in and hurtling down the runway. That's the moment where I'm like, uh-oh, what have I done? But I just close my eyes tight and I swallow hard and focus on the love. Well, not just that. I'm praying real hard. I'm like, Jesus, please don't let this be my last moment. But you know what I mean? So what are you going to do now? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to create, and you're not going to stop creating once you start. And you're going to do it for the love of contribution, for the love of service, for the love of legacy. Let's get to it. Get out your notebook and pen and create this list. Write down, what are the things that you love in life? In general, just write it down. It can be ice cream, family, trampolines, whatever. And just keep going until you run dry on that first page. Then when you're done, I want you to turn the page and write on the next page. Only write this. What things or experiences do you love to create? It can be only one thing or many things. There's no minimum requirement. Just get it out. Now that you've done that, now I want you to get one sticky note or one piece of paper only, and only write one thing on this. Write on it one of the things that you wrote on the other paper that were things that you love to create, and post it up for the week. Then every time you see it, I want you to ask yourself, what will I do today that's for the love? That's for the love of this thing. And then I want you to go do it, just that little thing. Do it for the love. Learn to focus on love and move towards love rather than focusing on and battling what you fear. Let's move towards love and see what it does for your ability to create. Because what better way to put your love in action than to create something beautiful with your gifts? Did you enjoy this episode? Then share it with a friend and leave a review for Reframe to Create on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps others know this is the place to be. See you soon, Creating Maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?